understanding their own mental health, because they have the added pressure of not only themselves, but all the people around them. And there's a huge stigma against mental health anyway, but within the world of being a business owner, entrepreneur, it's even higher because we simply cannot let people know.
Welcome, everyone, to episode number 14 of The Interesting People You Meet. We have a colleague, friend, Michael DeVenney, who is the president of WorkInsights and the founder of the Mindset Project. And we're very excited to have you on the podcast, Michael, to learn a lot more about you, both from a personal perspective and your story that you continue to share via social and personal, stories with others, as well as, the great work you're doing with companies here in Atlantic Canada, and I think even further at this point. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. As you know, I'm always open to talk about pretty much anything. So.
Well, that's good. We're really excited for this, and I'd be remiss to say if I didn't introduce our co-host, Nathan Dover, as well, who's on the conversation with us today. So, Mike, we met maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it was interesting because we're both avid users of the platform LinkedIn, and I had made a post called The Importance of an Employee and Family Assistance Program in the Workplace, and it was just sort of my view on it as it pertains to employee benefits and a resource for employees to reach out to. And at that time, you had reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm working on an interesting project, a new company. Why don't we meet up and have a chat?" And since then, we've developed a pretty cool relationship and have a lot of great chats. So you're avid user of LinkedIn, and from what I've watched and seen, it seems as though you have a couple of pertinent posts on a weekly basis. One that seems to relate to your own personal journey through healing and in particular mental health and those sorts of things. And furthermore, one as it pertains to to the mental health of our employees and the leadership style, I guess, for business owners. Am I right there, or?
Yeah, the Sunday posts that I've been putting out, they really started almost as a personal way to share a story and see if there was a conversation to be had. Really didn't expect a lot from it, to be honest, and it's been overwhelming, actually, the response, and it shows that the level of interest in talking about mental health has never been greater, and the need for it has also never been greater. And the one I do throughout the week, like you said, is typically around leadership, although that is also starting to now veer towards mental health, because most of the challenges and struggles we all face with mental health are coming through the workplace now.
Right.
So it's going to be very interconnected.
Yeah, absolutely. If I may read one of your current posts as it pertains to mental health, you had said, "I find myself wishing a lot lately that my anxiety would lessen, that the stress would not feel so heavy, that I would not be so alone, and that I would belong. I wish that the future would be different than the past. And over the years, I've spent many hours wishing. But one wish did come true, that I could be me, the wish that I could be me. 6 years ago, I found the courage to tell my story of being molested and not being hugged or told I was loved, or of bullying and that I was gay. I am me and working with an incredible therapist. I do not carry the shame and guilt I did for years, and have started to see myself as someone of value." That is not something you hear someone say or come out and say every day, and it's very powerful for you to get to that point, and I applaud you for that, for sharing your story. Do you want to expand maybe a little bit more on sort of where that comes from and your story?
Yeah, what I found is that I could either just accept what happened and leave it there, or I could do something with it. And I made the decision that I wanted to do something with this. I hid who I was for most of my adult life, and it was only 6 years ago when I went through a pretty severe depression that everything came out. And I decided that once I opened the doors, I was going to slam them open. And I was, I think first and foremost, I was trying to understand if I was the only one. Like when you're going through it, it just feels like a really solo experience that you're on your own. And I founded the Mindset Project to understand, do other people go through mental health challenges like this, and how do they make decisions from it? And that's when I found out that I was far from alone. In fact, most people will experience some struggle with mental illness during their lifetime. But what really hit me is that 22% of men will have been abused as children in one way or another. An astounding 39% of women will have been abused. And less than 2% of men will talk about it. So I felt that I will talk about it. And I have never regretted it. It's been a part of my healing. So it's been, I guess, in some ways a bit selfish that it helped me move through things. But I've also been really overwhelmed by the response from people, and having me now speak in front of large groups, and seeing people in those groups actually start sharing their experiences, which to me has been incredibly rewarding. And to a great extent, it changed my life in the sense of I went from a business that I had originally to a whole new business, which is based on employee experience and particularly understanding the impact of mental health in the working environment. So, yeah, it was a complete change of life. And I have a complex form of PTSD, which is very simply a PTSD that is based on trauma you had as a child that would have been extended. So, I had 9 years of different types of abuse, and that definitely qualified. So it left and stayed with me.
Mm-hmm.
And now, with that, I know I'm never going to be over it. I'll always have it with me. That little guy, 7 years old, still walks with me, I always say. And there always are going to be periods of anxiety and also depression for me. And the biggest, I think, progress I've made, and I think I mentioned that post, this amazing therapist I work with, Brad. He has been just the most amazing support and helping me find ways to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You shared a quote called, "The truth, as I see it, is that people can both struggle and remain upbeat simultaneously through even the most soul-testing of challenges." I guess that's a fair statement as to what you've gone through, and perhaps what many others do.
Yeah, it's a lot of people have said, my story is like a wrecking ball. It's something that can just kind of blow you right through a wall. So when I'm speaking, I also have to bring some humor into it so that people can relax and be able to talk about it. And it's might sound like a struggle to find humor, but when I tell my story, I start saying things like, and luckily I found Tina Turner. So one of the things I've learned how to do is meditate, which is not a natural place for me. And I really struggled with meditation because my mind is always going. So someone recommended that Tina Turner had meditations online. So I have always been a huge fan. I actually got to meet Tina Turner years ago. So being able to meditate with Tina Turner has been quite a great experience. So that's something that can lighten the mood up. And in my therapy in the last 3 months, which has been an amazing shift for me, is my therapist has been using boxing as part of my therapy, which who would have ever thought that I was sliding into another depression and struggling with trying to find some energy. And my therapist just happens to have boxing as one of his hobbies. And the next time I went into therapy with him, he had 2 sets of boxing gloves. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. And he said, no, I think I'm going to get you up and actually moving. So a regular part of our therapy now has been boxing lessons. And all I can say is that it shook me out of what could have been another depression, made me stand a bit taller, not have so much tension. And there will hopefully be an opportunity. I might be able to actually get a punch in on Brad one of these days. So it's been amazing to me just how you'll find something that will shift things for you. And, boxing would never have been something I would have thought would resonate with me, but it did. So each person is on their own journeys. It's really hard with mental health to say this is what you need to do based on everybody else, because we're all going to find our own way. So for someone else, it could be something gardening, could be something that just takes them to a special place, and that's what helps them. So it's just finding out whatever it is.
And for those that, I can't say I've been on a similar journey, but perhaps, what is that cue when they should recognize and not just, I guess, and not to say we're going to give advice here at all, but just through your own experience, when does one reach out and go, man, I really do need some help? And is that journey, to find a therapist an easy one, or not? And what does that sort of look like as you navigate that landscape here, especially based here in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because I just finished working on a strategy around mental health within the province, and knowing where to start is the number one challenge for most people. Simply not aware of what is the best route for them. I always think that the signs that, we've gone beyond simply dealing with stress to, going down this road of mental illness is that it usually shows up in our sleep first. So if we have extended periods of disturbed sleep, that we're not able to sleep, or that all we want to do is sleep, that's usually a sign that something's not right. And I think the other big one is rumination, that, we all worry, and that's part of life. But when that worry starts taking on this almost ongoing wrangling in your mind about what could I have done differently, what could have, I have looked at, or who could I have talked to, what could I do differently? We just start this whole cycle of trying to start controlling things that we can't control. That to me is a sign that you're now moving into a new place. And now, as you would know, the incident rates of mental illness are going way up because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And finding a therapist has always been difficult. I will never understand why we don't graduate more clinical and counseling therapists, but we don't. That just makes no sense to me. I always encourage a therapist as the first route. There's someone who is simply there to be on your side and help you find your way. Actually, you were the one that referred this company to me, Inkblot Therapy. I have referred them to so many people. Wow. as an option to try to find help sooner. Because in the province here, I would say you've got at least a 6-month wait. If you're paying privately, if you're going through the public system, it could be far longer than that. But there's also a lot of really incredible community groups that you could look to join. And the Canadian Mental Health Association, I always refer them as probably one of the first stops, because they have almost a map of all the different community groups that are around you. So if you could, talk to them about what it is that you're dealing with, you could be part of a community group and find that you're not alone while you're waiting to get into a therapist.
Yeah, I feel like, if I remember correctly, it was something like 300 plus days outside of, private clinics, So if you're quote unquote going through the system, that's the wait time for mental health here in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, and the worst thing is that most people think, I'll just wait until there is a problem, which usually means there's already a problem.
Yeah.
So I think particularly for entrepreneurs. I do a lot of work with entrepreneurs and understanding their own mental health, because they have the added pressure of not only themselves, but all the people around them. And there's a huge stigma against mental health anyway, but within the world of being a business owner, entrepreneur, it's even higher, because we simply cannot let people know, or that's what we think. We cannot let people know, or that could hurt our business, that could hurt our relations with team members, with clients, with investors. So I find entrepreneurs are incredibly challenged. And we definitely need to help more on that side.
Yeah. For those who, would be, say, part of your circle or anyone's circle who's spoken up about their own, mental health issues, how can your friends, your colleagues, your, et cetera, be there for you? Like, and it's hard. It's, I'm sure it's different for every person, but sometimes, like, for example, for myself, if someone's, willing to talk about these type of things, I constantly want to help. Again, not a therapist, but you just want to be there for someone. But like, you're also kind of like, I don't want to say too much. I don't really know what to say, those sorts of things. Like, do you have any advice for those listening who have a family member, a friend who could be, going through a similar situation, that just, what do you do?
Yeah. So this is a question that comes up in almost every session I've been doing. It's like, how do we have these conversations? And the urge to help is overwhelming and resisted.
Yes.
Because what you just alluded to is the best thing you can do is just listen. If I reach out to you, that means I trust you, and that's a huge sign. And what I'm mainly looking for, what we're all looking for, is to be validated that there's something going on. And a lot of times what people will hear back is, everyone's going through a lot of, pressures from the pandemic, or, a lot of people go through like these times, like, just try to get through it. And so what you've done is you've just, devalued me. And then you also want to jump to fix me. I'm not broken, I'm not damaged. So like, what I really want more than anything else is just to have you listen to me, ask me how I feel, like, what's it like, what am I going through? Those types of questions are really helpful. And a really good friend of mine who is a mental health professional said that most people know what they need to do. They just need to be able to talk it out so that they'll take the first step. But they'll often get put off because people, again, with the best intent, want to fix them and make it better or make it go away. To a great extent, I had to, in the last year, and this has been really tough, like, I separated myself from family, I separated myself from a lot of other people that were part of my past, simply because it was not, they were not positive for me. And to be able to get in a place of being like mentally healthy, like, I sold my house last year and moved. So, I made a lot of changes in the last year. And that post that you read is mainly from having, moved away from so many people. There's quite I guess, a gap in my life right now. And people who are no longer there are not necessarily the ones that should be there, but there's a gap. So I find myself struggling a bit with that. And the answer is simply to be patient. And I've done the right thing, so it's trying to get there. But I give really long answers, Nick, too. So I think the best thing that people can do, again, is just listen to the person and confirm that what they're feeling is real, and that it would be natural to feel that way. And you try to help from there as to what do you think you'd like to do? Like, what would be the best first step for you? Not telling them what to do, but like asking them, because again, they probably know. They just need to talk about it.
Right. Thank you.
I know, Michael, you're very passionate about this subject, and obviously, I'm assuming that is why you started the Mindset Project. Can you tell me a little bit more about your journey with that and what exactly you do?
Yeah. So Nathan, like again, I always powered my way through by working longer and longer hours. So by suppressing everything and keeping all my feelings inside, I always felt the best thing I could do is just work. And when that all fell apart and everything started to kind of unload, I found that it made me even question myself further. Like, was I weak? Like, was there something wrong? Like, was there something wrong with me? Like, why can other people seem to deal with things and I can't? So the Mindset Project was, to a great extent, really trying to understand entrepreneurs and mental health and their decisions, because I do regret a number of the decisions I made at that time. Making big decisions while you're in a depression is not usually a great time for that. So then it started me down the road when I found out, like, how prevalent it is and what a big problem it is. I wanted to go further, and it's really took me. And I had been a consultant for private equity and growth businesses, and you can't grow if you're being overwhelmed by stress and how to respond to it. So that seemed to be a way I wanted to go, and I happened to take a psychology degree because I just had to understand more, and that took me into the WorkInsights business, which I founded after that. And I do look back and go, why didn't I just take a job? It would have been so much easier. But I am an entrepreneur and I can't help it. Then I don't want to. So I founded WorkInsights, and the idea there was I love data. So how do I bring all these pieces together? So we developed, we being, there's two really incredible guys who work with me who are both 33 years old by chance, but one's a programmer, one's a designer, and we developed an analytic that can quantify and qualify the working environment, so you understand the employee experience, what it's doing to people, what you can do as a leader to shape that to be more healthy for people, and that in its own way will support growth. So it all kind of wrapped together. And I didn't think I'd be developing software at my age. I thought I'd be doing something a little bit different. But I think it's kept me a lot younger than I actually am. And it's been a really interesting ride, and there's lots more coming. So so like I look back and go, again, I could have wallowed in my circumstances, but I can't change what happened in the past. What I can change is the future. Like, what am I going to do going forward? And like I put in that blog that Nick read, I don't want the future to be the same as the past. So that is up to me. So that's kind of a long way to where I got to, but that's where I am now.
And thank you for that. And can you give us some examples of what sort of data that your tool is grabbing for these businesses? Like, what's it telling them? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, one of the things it's telling, which is I think hitting everyone right now, is that we can actually identify the percentage of people who are actually considering leaving a company and why.
Okay.
So before they've gone, we can actually tell you, you've got 32% of your employee base considering departure. And here's the 3 reasons why. That is something that is becoming very much of interest to a lot of people lately. And at the same time, we can go the other way and show you why people would actually want to work with your firm, what holds them here, what's the brand. So how can you attract people to work with your firm? We've talked for so many years about people are our greatest asset, but yet that's not what we actually do. So I felt that without the numbers, to actually show what was going on in the workplace. That was going to be the only way to get leaders to actually pay attention, move forward, and do the right things. So as much as they say they want to, only 23% of employers actually do focus on employee experience. So that is not a great number. That means 3/4 of companies are not investing in their employee experience. So it's things like that that just frustrate me to no end. That one, people aren't assets either. So the whole thing is like you should be investing in employee experience. That's going to give you the whole groundwork for customer experience and growth. And what fascinates me as well, sorry, now I'm on a rant here, Nathan, but what fascinates me as well is that companies spend incredible amounts of money to try to understand how to communicate to their customers, to try to understand the market. Yet they spend no time or money in terms of how do they communicate to their employees and workforce. So the crazy thing is, for me, is that you can actually understand exactly what your employees want to hear, what they want to talk about, and yet we don't do it. So we should be investing as much in communicating internally to engage and help people contribute their best to the company, find a purpose and meaning in what they're doing, as we do in trying to entice customers to buy what we sell. So, I mean, there's lots of things that we're uncovering, but we developed this Net Employee Promoter Score, which looks at what is the likelihood of employees promoting the company they work for to others. And that is fascinating. And we've learned how to apply some AI applications to it so we can actually tell the emotions they have in terms of their experience with the company. So, yeah, that becomes really fascinating. So we've done work with diversity, equity, and inclusion to see, where do companies really fall, and let's just say they're not falling anywhere near what they would hope to fall or think they are, and the feelings that are generated are not positive. So, yeah, I would say so much of what we look at is really understanding, and each company is going to be different. But what is that key factor, that catalyst piece that would really help people be more connected to the company? I think that's probably a big piece too, is that with remote hybrid work, we're now losing that sense of being part of an organization. So trying to find ways to keep that connection strong, no matter where we're working from, is really important.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it is, and it's like, yeah, I could then rant from there based on our experience in our specialty of employee benefit programs for small to medium-sized businesses. Yeah, a lot of connections there from what I just heard. I don't know how far down the road I want to go on that, but I think that businesses. Do you think it's a reflection of size sometimes, Michael, when you look at that? So the company that has 500 or 1,000 employees, does that differ much from that with 25 to 500?
No.
Really?
I find that there's a generation that I am a part of that the main driver of success has been performance.
Mm-hmm.
And we've very much been taught to suck it up and keep moving. So those are the people that are in leadership positions right now.
Right.
And I think there's a significant change to the leadership proposition that needs to be made that, hasn't yet kind of made that turnover, but will. And it's moving away from, there's still mainly this feeling of command and control or tell and sell,
Mm-hmm.
to people where it really needs to be, a two-way communication.
Right.
And seeking the perspectives of the people that are in your company.
Yeah.
Which with technology is easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we still don't do it.
You said leadership going forward would be more about reverse mentoring, learning from the people in your organization. To be a better leader, your company needs you to be. People want more autonomy, greater flexibility, their work having a sense of purpose. Engagement is suffering and turnover is at levels never seen before. Finding and retaining talent is a significant strain on the organization, holding back growth potential. I couldn't agree more as we have conversations with many business owners every day. Turnover is exceptional, and even with current clients, the amount of turnover that we're able to see from enrollments and that coming and going of employee benefit programs is, I've never seen it like this, for sure. And
well, I think I've had this, it's not mine saying originally, but I used all the time, the war for talent is over and talent won.
Right.
So it's time to change how you do things, but yet I still find leaders are almost in an attack mode in the sense of this active recruiting and searching and all these different approaches to try to grab people and bring them in,
Mm-hmm.
when I think they should look inward. So what's the employee experience like at your business? That could perhaps explain why people are leaving or why they're not coming in. I believe there are skilled workers out there. We're just not communicating to them in an effective way. And I think by understanding what is it about the employee experience in your business, in your organization, that would encourage current employees to refer others to your firm. What is it that would form the brand that would attract people to be with your company? And I've had a lot of people I know, and some are good friends who have businesses, who say that a lot of the people who are leaving are just doing it for the money. No, they're not. They're not just doing it for the money. I think a lot of times the money confirms a decision, but the decision was made before that.
Mm-hmm.
And people know that they don't have to put up with a environment where they're not valued, they're not given the experience they're looking for, and they can go somewhere else and pick up another 15% on the way. So what's wrong with that? So I always say stop bitching about people leaving and the money they're getting, and start looking at how can you invest in making your working environment a place people want to be at.
Right. So when an organization goes through this sort of exercise, do you then on the other end have some recommendations as to how to fix or improve, I should say?
I'm usually more polite.
Yeah.
I'm usually more polite about it, but not always. I think the biggest thing that people are looking for from what we do is the truth.
Right.
And we give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
That, 42% of people don't feel that their talents and skills are valued here. We actually put a number to what it is that probably is the biggest trigger. And by chance, that's the number that we find is most prevalent, that people don't feel that their skills and talents are valued. And that's why they start looking, or they don't see the purpose of the business of the company. So there's a word that annoys the crap out of me, in the sense that we talk about purpose again, but we don't actually do anything about it.
Right.
It's like another plaque to put on a wall somewhere or on the website.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be more than a tagline.
So is it such that, someone who doesn't feel their talents and skills are valued, are they in the wrong position on the ship? And perhaps it should be encouraged that, the leaders of these folks better understand their talents and put them in the right spot, or no, or
learning and development is one of the biggest, attractions to keep people with a company. And what's becoming really more interesting to me is that the learning and development, rather than being upward, is now almost horizontal. So people want to learn different skills. They want to learn new things and not necessarily become, experts in one specific area. that's a distinct difference from the way work was done in the past. So giving people opportunities to work on like lateral moves to different projects can be really rewarding. Helping them. We now have so many learning opportunities, like with MicroMasters, microcredits, things like that. So you can continue learning skills and be on projects that really are meaningful. That's what's going to make a difference. And I think the other thing too is that the lack of communication within the company from leaders, and the decisions that don't match the actual stated purpose, that probably has the biggest impact. And the one single thing everyone's looking for. So a big topic we're all talking about, psychological safety. So it's providing that environment where you're able to feel safe to talk. And that's not something baby boomers have been very good at. And I'm not sure Gen X is that much better. But we have to get there.
Mm-hmm. When you present these results to these organizations, in addition to your follow-up, what generally is their reaction? When perhaps I have this view, I know there's a psychological term where we have 4 different boxes and I see myself one way and you see me another way. I can't remember what that's called, but they're so surprised, like feeling, say they're a 9 out of 10 on the net employee promoter score, and then realize they're like a 4, and they go, "Oh, darn! Like, what's going on? Like, what does that reaction look like, or is it that's extreme?"
Well, I think there's a level of defensiveness for sure, but I find most leaders are actually really intrigued. They want to know more,
right.
And the best leaders, they want to understand. And there's one company that just comes to mind that I work with. There's two co-CEOs, and they want to know. And I've worked with them now 3 years, and their results have gone up each year. And the comment is always, "Well, we want to do it again because where are people right now? Like, are there things we're missing?" And they're a company that is growing rapidly, so they have a concern about how do we maintain this culture that's been so supportive of people. So I'd say most leaders are open and interested, and the numbers start telling the story, and they then look at, okay, what do we do? And that's the biggest thing I think they're looking for me, is not just here's the problem, but here are the insights. This is what's happening. This is how it's playing out. This is why. And if you use this lever, that's going to give you the most likely opportunity. So we do correlation analysis, which actually lets us look at, it's fascinating to me anyway, like it lets you look at, if you do this one thing, you're more likely to get what you're looking for.
Right.
So finding that out, I think, is what leaders are looking for. What is it we need to do? How do we best communicate? And that's typically what people are doing with the results we bring to them. It's like, how do we use this to communicate so that we can connect? And that really is what people are using data that we come back with for.
Speaking from communications, then, I happen to be married to a professional communicator, and I'm sure she would wonder as she listens to this, have any organizations that perhaps are still in that growth stage or even at maturity, maybe haven't had a communications team in place to gather this information, work with leaders, and then spread it to the rest of the team. Have there been any stories like that?
I don't think I've been working with a company yet that actually has an internal communications team.
Okay.
And very large, very successful companies.
Right.
A lot of times this is added to the desk of someone in the marketing department,
Mm-hmm.
Or it's added to the desk of someone in human resources.
Right.
But to me, there's a huge opportunity to develop an internal communications team
Right.
that's simply focused on how do we best communicate to the people within our organization.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There you go, PR grads and masters of PR. You are valued and needed.
Yeah, we don't need branding and marketing internally, but we do need like strategic communication without question.
Absolutely.
Well, Michael, and I know you talk to leaders pretty much all the time, and I was just curious. You kind of already alluded to what a good leader is like, and that they're often very open and accepting of this kind of information. But what do you think makes a good leader? Like, what are some characteristics that you see?
So one thing I can give you is what people are looking for. So we keep, of course, data on what are the attributes that employees are looking for. And there's three big ones. One is that you're forward thinking. So you're looking ahead, not trying to capture the past. That you're a sense maker. So you make sense of all the complexity. So give them a direction. And that you have empathy, that you actually do care about them. So those are the three biggest attributes that we find that people are looking for from leaders. I think what adds to that from the conversation before is that you know how to communicate and you do. I think one of the biggest things is just leaders who are more open and inclusive. And by inclusive, I mean welcoming the perspectives of people. I still see this absolutely foolish exercise of a leader and his or her senior team shuddering away to put together a strategic plan, which is just another, copy of what they did last year or 3 years ago. So there's nothing, innovative about it, but that's what the whole strategic plan is going to be. And then they, bring it out and bring it to everybody and wonder why no one's that interested. Again, like we've got easy technology that we can use to get the perspectives of people within the company. That's what we should be doing. We should be including people, getting their perspectives, understanding the context of the company that we have or the business we have, getting their perspective. They have a much better opinion, I think, of where customers are and what's going on than people in the leadership suite, and being open to that. I think the best leaders have the right questions and stop this idea of having to have all the answers. No one needs a martyr anymore, or as Tina would say, like if we bring it back to Tina Turner, no one needs another hero. So we're really looking for people who know how to ask questions and have those conversations. So
Perfect.
I think the key to leadership is listening more to Tina Turner. She simply is.
Hey, shout out to Tina today. Her Amazon sales are going up after this. Mike, I'd hate to conclude and not talk about the large array of books behind you and the rest of them in your house that I'm aware of. So do you mind, can we spend a couple of minutes just chatting about your fascination with reading and learning? What kind of got you on that path? You have probably more books behind you than most have in their house, or most people do. So I know you're kind of doing a neat project on that. I don't know if you're talking about that yet. If you are, why don't you elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, well, I live in a library. There's actually 6,000 books in the house and me. And that goes way back to when I was a kid and what was happening to me. I found reading as an outlet for me to escape, and it allowed me to go up into my head and try to put away what was happening around me and to me. So I've always had a real interest in books, and books led to learning and opening my mind up. And I usually read like 4 or 5 books a month, plus journals and articles. And I just find it just keeps my mind open. I do this odd thing where I tag what I like in a book. So I usually read 3 books at a time. So I'll read one that's just for personal interest, one for business, and then one is usually on psychology, philosophy. So on the business side, I'll tag what I like in the book, write the notes out, And what's come up lately is this great entrepreneur I know is he wants to take all these summaries that I've put together and put them into kind of white paper formats and make them available for people. But now we're kind of looking at, can we pick, the 10 best books that I feel I've read and write a book around the 10 things I learned from those books that could help other people. I kind of like the idea of like a 52-week, like one thing you can take for each week.
Nice.
But we'll see what happens. But I know I'm not going to move for quite a while because I moved last year, and I'll tell you, packing 6,000 books and then unpacking them, that was a bit of effort. And but I wasn't comfortable here until they were where they were supposed to be.
Right.
Big part of life.
I did the same when I remember moving into my house a number of years ago. And it was like the first thing I unpacked outside of like my pants and shirts, clothing was, where do the books go? Where can I put them? So I've got a couple more questions for you, and then maybe we can open it up. If there's anything you'd want to share that we haven't talked about, that would be great. But, Mike, do you ever gift books to anyone since you read so much? Do you give them away, or do you buy a couple copies of each one?
So I don't loan books at all.
Right.
I've done it 3 times and never received the 3 back, so I will never loan a book again.
Yeah.
But I always gift books.
Right.
I find it's been a great gift for people, and there'll be certain books I'll really like, so I'll buy different copies of them. But I do find in the last year I changed just because of the pandemic that I made charitable contributions to the Mental Health Association rather than books.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I thought that was kind of a better fit around all things.
Mm-hmm. What has you excited right now, Michael?
I should be excited about a lot of things. There's some really interesting projects that are going ahead. We have a really major change with the business coming up in the next few weeks. That'll get announced probably in the next month. That's going to be a game changer the whole way around and allow much greater access and growth for the business. And I've got a lot of work again on mental health that I'm doing. So I don't know. I seem to be able to find opportunities. I'm fairly good at sniffing them out and seeing what's there. And I've always found that when you talk to somebody and you ask questions and you listen, you'll find out what actually is there. And so I'm excited by the opportunities that are open right now. And this is the first year I've lived, by the ocean in St. Margaret's Bay. So I'm pretty excited about what it's going to be like to start summer out here because I've never had that before. So, I would say those are the 2 biggest things.
Awesome. And I like to ask this question. What is one question that you wish people would ask you more, or that they don't ask you at all, but you wish they did?
I don't like when people ask what's my favorite book. That's just, I can't.
Good, we avoided that one. Perfect.
So that one aside. I don't know how to answer that one. Like, I'm pretty much open for any question. Like, I guess what I would say is, I just would like you to ask me a question.
Okay.
I find, in the past, I always felt, people didn't see, who was there, so didn't really have a conversation. I value conversation more than anything, so I'm really drawn to people who actually ask questions and listen. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's a bad question for me. I'll talk about anything, but I think the fact that you ask me a question is what I'm primarily looking for.
Awesome. And is there anything else you'd want to share with the audience or with us today that's on your mind?
I think the biggest thing I'd share comes back to, where we started, is that it's really being aware and investing in their own mental health, and taking time and watching the people around us. Like, I always sign off with, be kind to yourself and take care of each other. So that's the best message I can put out there, is that, there are a lot of people struggling right now. And there's a huge stigma which holds people back from talking about it. So for all of us, it's taking more care to look and see what we can do for other people. And my way is to put that message out. And I know people will hesitate at times because they question whether I can handle, them talking about their problem. Actually, it's really good for me. I always tell people, don't ever hesitate to ask me questions or talk about where they're at, because that's an easy conversation.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today, Michael. It's been a great conversation. I always love our conversations. I learn something every time, and I appreciate you being open and sharing your story and your business. Hopefully the listeners were able to learn something and take something from this, and the business owners as well. To understand that perhaps, in some situations, things need to change. And if they were to, something resonated with anyone here as it pertains to what you do with WorkInsights, how would they find you?
They can definitely find me on LinkedIn, but the email address is michael@workinsights.io. So that's where you can find me. And like I said, I'm always happy to connect and answer questions.
Excellent. Well, thanks again. We really appreciate it.